Evening, folks, and welcome back to Hamilton Originals. Mike McCurlie here with this very special video post of a true Hamilton original, Ronnie Hawkins. Now, Ronnie was to appear somewhat live on our streaming show last November 2nd. Turns out he couldn't join us that night, yet that show had the largest viewership of all. Next morning, Ronnie felt real bad about disappointing his fans, so he called and insisted he make it up to us with a good long chat recorded in the Hawkins family room. We went that Friday morning. Although we didn't shoot video of that conversation, we got a fabulous audio recording, so we decided to add some simple visuals to help bring some of Ronnie's stories to life. We'll open by reminding you how we're connected to Ronnie through his best friend Gary Lucas. Here's a quick recap of the opening of our show November 2nd, just after we found out Ronnie couldn't make it. We start with a bit of Ronnie's big hit, 40 Days, then cut right to Ronnie's family room a few days later. We're hoping Ronnie would introduce this song because you know how he always introduced this song. You could do it.
He always said, folks, this is the one that took us from the hills and the stills and put us on the pills. And it goes like this. I'm going to give you 40 days to get back home. I'm going to call up a gypsy woman on the telephone. I'm going to send me on a worldwide hooter. That'll be the very thing that'll suit you. Gonna see that you'll be back home 40 days. Oh, 40 days. 40 days. 40 days. Oh, 40 days. Gonna see that you.
I got a few questions for you, Ronnie.
Alrighty. I can't remember her phone numbers though, but I
Okay. Well, that's how I wanted to start. Like, I wondered how you met Wanda and fell in love with Wanda. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Well, I'll tell you what. She used to come up when I met her to the apartment and sit on the couch and wait for them other 7 or 8 girls. Ask her. It's a true story.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not.
That's true.
You wouldn't think anybody could get away with such shit. I got away with it, boys. That was how popular we were at one time, just in that one little area. The band was probably the best rock and roll band ever assembled. Ever.
I believe it.
Because nobody had that many good-looking kids, that much talent, with somebody like Garth to teach.
Oh.
Yeah. And I forced them to practice.
You sure did.
And after a year, they got so good that they got tired of playing rockabilly. I'd run it myself. They got so good.
You created a monster.
Yeah.
I was trying to have the best bar band in the history of Canada.
And you did.
And I did.
You're damn right you did.
I've had a lot of good bar bands, but that was the best one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they were all young, 17, 18 years old, super talented, wrote songs, played their good instrument. I mean, Terry Danko played real good guitar. Robbie Robertson got sick, and where we was playing, Grand Band, I think, and Ricky Danko went on guitar for him for 2 or 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he knew the songs good enough to do that. I couldn't take Levon off drum. Levon was the best. Levon would have been better than anybody, better than Robbie, if I'd kept him on guitar.
Yep.
But she couldn't find a drummer. I was the luckiest cat in the world because I got to do exactly what I loved doing, showing off and doing all that shit for all those years. 63 years.
Wow.
And I never missed Betty, did I? I never missed much for sickness.
No.
I had too many women waiting on me down there. But boy, for a little while, we had the glory.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It wasn't like that all over the world, but it was like that on Young Street.
I'll tell you one person you didn't fool was
Wanda. Hey.
Tell her, I just told her what you had to do.
Is this on tape now?
Yes.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And we were just asking how you guys met and how you fell in love.
Okay, tell them the truth now.
Yeah.
It's true, boys.
Yeah.
Ron and I went to visit him one time in the hotel there at the Frontenac Arms, and he had a room full of girls. They sat on all around the couches, and he was in the bedroom, and he would
Interviewing them.
They would come in, and then they'd go out, and the next one would come in, and then they go to. They stayed there about 15 minutes each, and later I asked him, well, what is it that you were doing there? He said, I just fuck them 1 or 2 times and then I'd leave. And then they'd leave, yeah.
Okay.
So I told that story a lot over the years.
So, Wanda
Well,
knew
it was true, though, that the girls were there, and they were coming in to see the king.
Yeah,
But you were the lucky one, though, Wanda.
I know.
extremely lucky.
He was the lucky one. He was the lucky one.
He just
And
works out
knows
like that.
It took him like 25 years before he realized
30.
how lucky he was.
30 years, dear.
So we've been married almost 60 years. So for
Can you
30
believe-
years, he was in charge. The last 30 years, I'm in charge.
It should be against the law for a man forced to stay with a woman that fucking long. Did you know that? Boy.
Yeah. Well, behind every great man, they say there's a great woman, and I guess that would be Wanda.
Pushing him because she wants that money.
Yeah, well, there's that.
And I have it all now.
There you go, you see?
Boys, they gave me 90 days or less to live. 4 or 5 doctors had pancreatic cancer. So I had 6 weeks or less, something like that.
3 months.
2 or 3 months. It wasn't very long. So I started partying. Oh, I'm telling you what, I got musicians from all over the world, and we brought in drugs. Even the Chinese didn't know what some of it was.
Those were the days.
And I'm telling you what, we went, and I got to feeling better. And every time I'd go back to get checked, it stopped growing. It's not, it wasn't, they could tell how long you got to live, how long that tumor grew. And then all of a sudden I went there one day and they looked at one another. I saw them just looking at one another. It wasn't there. It disappeared. Wow. Well, right off the bat, I thought for sure it was that healer out there that come in from Vancouver, that young Indian healer. But I don't know what it was.
It was rum and coke, I think, is probably what
Rum
it
and
was.
Coke?
That's what I told you. Remember that interview I did? Where on TV show, they said that. And then they said, what helped me a lot was whiskey and marijuana. And that was on a network show. It was from across Canada. And then they called it some kind of medicine.
Wow.
I can't remember shit.
But he had a 5.5-hour operation for the pancreatic cancer that was growing in him. And when they opened him up, they found that the tumor was on the main artery. So they couldn't operate. So they closed them all up.
And that's when they gave you.
Then he started drinking and smoking double time and got better. So the cure for that is drink and smoke all you can.
Okay.
And screw as many girls as you can. That's what helps.
Yeah, there's that too.
Wanda, was that what, 12, 13 years ago?
About 15 years ago now.
15, wow.
Yeah. I think it is. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Well, anyway, that's when I took all my money, hid all my money here, and gave it to Wanda. I didn't die, and she hadn't given a fucking penny back.
So I have everything.
She's a lot smarter than you think she was.
And I'll tell you something else they're good at. She and my kids, when we sold the property, I made an extra $1 million, right? I bought 2 houses, which is 10 times too high.
You didn't make an extra $1 million.
I made $1 million fucking dollars.
Well, it doesn't matter what you made, it's just what you gave out.
Oh. Well, pussy was expensive back then. Kept me broke. But anyway, boys, I'll tell you what about music. I told Gary this. There was about 4 or 5 little girls in high school that, boy, you just fall in love with, but you got to be the captain of the football team to take them out, in high school. So I just dreamed for a while, but I got one old record out that didn't sell enough to pay for the liner notes, and I had one old Cadillac car that I had to hide it in the daytime to keep them from repossessing it. And every one of them hit on me. Every one of those girls that that's when I said, I want to stay in music if I have to get 2 jobs. But I started, boy, and but Canada was a promised land, and Dallas Harms was the one that saved us.
Well, can you tell us about that? Like, how come you came to Canada in the first place?
Harold Jenkins, who changed his name to Conway Twitty, had come up to Hamilton.
Yeah.
What was the name of that hotel?
Flamingo.
That's it. And Harold Cutlass, who was the Hebrew booking agent, he was living with his nephew at the time, the comedian that's done everything.
Eugene Levy?
Huh?
Eugene
Levy. Well, it's his sister. His mom is Harold Cutlass' sister.
Right.
And Harold had gone broke. He was a gambler. He'd gone completely broke, lost house, car, wedding ring, everything. And he'd moved in with his sister. And then I came up here, and I guess it was Conway that came first. And of course, he asked if there were any other bands down there, and he mentioned, get that, maybe Hollywood. That's Hollywood looking for me.
Oh yeah.
Wanting somebody to play Clark Gable.
So what did Dallas Harms have to do with it?
Dallas Harms came in the club. I had met Dallas. He'd played with Conway. He played in extra
In the U.S.
in my club in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Rockwood.
Yeah, the Rockwood.
In Fayetteville, Arkansas?
Fayetteville, Arkansas. I had some clubs there, and I booked bands and everything. I booked Roy Orbison until he raised his fucking price to $400 a night. I said, fuck you. I don't care how high you can sing. Boys, he sat out in front of that house where I was staying for 2 or 3 hours, Gary, and sung some of the songs he'd written, and every one of them sounded like a smash. Wow. And he hit those high notes without getting a wrinkle. I mean, he was gifted, boy.
Oh, he sure was.
But then I found out he was playing in bands and musicals since he was 8 or 9 years old. Wow. So that's him, on all his songs there, that's him playing lead guitar.
I didn't know that.
Ooby Dooby and Go, Go, Go.
Yep.
Roy was a good picker. What was I telling you? I was telling you a story about something.
Dallas Harms.
Dallas.
Oh, Dallas, yeah. So I met him down in Arkansas, only Canadian, and he lived in Hamilton, Ontario, and he was a machinist. You have to take a big drop in salary from a machinist to a rockabilly. There was a big drop in salary. But anyway, he did good. Everybody knew him. He was a good guy. And he said he was going to bring a bunch of people in to see me on the weekend, right? Well, the Hebrew, I could tell we was gone like a July snow. I called up Dallas. I said, Dallas, it may not work, but if you don't bring everybody you know tomorrow, we're out of here. We're gone. Because I heard him talking to Harold Cutlass, said, get these hillbilly fuckers out of this. He said, they ran all my clientele off. There wasn't but fucking 3. Didn't run too many off. At 8 o'clock at night, there wasn't but 3 people in that club. But anyway, Dallas, I don't know how he did it, but he must have brought 20 or 30 people in that Tuesday. And then the owner looks around and says, well, wait a minute, because there ain't never been that many in there since World War II. So anyway, I heard him tell Cutlass, well, we'll try him a couple of more days. Well, the next day, because of the people he brought in, we had a lineup. That music was going over as good as any music ever gone over in Canada. Yep. It was my timing, boys, that saved me in Canada. Yep. All the hockey players, all the football players, all the heroes were my age, and they liked the music we played. So they were in the clubs all the time. And when you got Gordie Howe in there, you got people coming in the next day trying to see him.
No kidding. Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. And we had a lot of them. We had all of them. Old Eddie Shack would just call. And he was going to come up. He wanted to film it and do a few things. He said, I got to go in the hospital for a checkup. He went in there and died. I couldn't believe it. We had a lot of fun to get old Eddie Shack. He was something else.
Hospitals have that legacy. You go in there and you die in the damn hospitals.
That's what my dad used to say. He said, you go in there for something and they tag your toe for something else.
That's it.
Yep.
Now, Ronnie, I know that Gary went to Florida after your failed Alice Cooper concert in Thunder Bay.
Yep. He'd heard about that I took a bath in Alice Cooper, you know. And luckiest thing that ever happened to me, he said, Sam, why don't you quit all that shit? Come on the road with me, we'll have some fun. And I spent 8 years with him, living with Wanda and Ron at their place.
I don't think I ought to tell you on the microphone here, but Gary was a lot of fun to be around.
Okay. Yeah.
I never could figure it out either.
Who? About who?
About Gary.
About
Gary,
How he got that many good-looking women looking like he did.
Well, you said you saw him in the shower.
Yeah, I did. I saw him in the shower.
Oh.
And then I knew why.
Okay. No
Yeah.
competition.
Him and
Get out of
Levon,
here.
unnatural.
By comment. Anyway, this is Nigel. I can't even remember what he said his name was. He wants to write a book on you. But actually he wants to be the story of our life together. How I hooked you.
I don't want that to
How
fucking
I
get out.
hooked you.
They'll have me fucking committed. Staying with one woman that long.
How I hooked you.
Oh, she lied to me too. Oh, he didn't really lie, but I thought she had money.
I thought he had money.
We found out we was both broke. She was a cute little thing. Wanda was.
I think she's still adorable.
She was just one of the lucky ones after me, though. But
Yeah. Now tell me more about Harold Cudlitz, because he was my agent for a while. I knew
well,
him.
old Harold, let me tell you something. I really liked old Harold. When we got up there and we started playing, and we went over, and we got to be in probably the best, easiest booking band in Canada at one time when that whole band was together.
Yeah.
And then he got to making money, and we got to recommending everybody to him, from Arkansas, the brothers. What was Tommy McClellan? That's who I'm trying to think
I
of.
said that.
Did you?
Yeah.
We had to pay for 2 abortions for him. I told him about it last time I saw him. I said, you owe me for 2 abortions. One of them was Wanda's girlfriend. That's the only reason I paid it. I was forced to.
And the second one is why. Wait till I tell my story.
Oh, Mama, they're not going to believe your story.
Let's hear your story.
Well, I have a big story. It's 60 years of a story. I can't tell it on a...
How lucky can one girl be?
Hey, yeah,
63 years she's had me, boys.
that is
Part of the time.
But you're lucky too. It all worked out.
Don't brag on them. I told you, boys, they brag on me. She'll have a meeting in the morning, wanting a raise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I spent 8 years out at Stony Lake and Mississauga Road and High Park and Ron's Club in London.
Oh, Gary was a lot of fun to be around. He's a hustler, good, could sing. He could do everything, you know. And you know, he had a gift. He had a gift.
What is it?
Well, I don't know. It took me a long time to figure it out. I know now, but I couldn't. I didn't know how in the hell somebody that ugly could have these beautiful young girls on him all the time. I said, I'm the fucking singer. He said, supposed to be after me. And they kept going after that Gary boy. I didn't know. I said, how in the hell does he do it? Then I saw how he took a shower one day at my room. I knew why.
Okay. And yet you guys are still friends. There's no competitive.
Well, he likes me. I don't like him at all anymore. He stole every girl I wanted to get for the first few years. They went out with Gary, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm the front man. Shit, they're supposed to get all the girls.
Now tell me a bit more about the Hawks. I know you came up with Levon, but then how did you get the other?
Well, I came up with the Arkansas boys, Jimmy Ray Paulman and Willard Pop Jones and Levon. The drummer, it was a bass player that I didn't have with me because he had bad habits. And so I couldn't afford anybody that could drink on the job. He wanted to drink on the job. Everybody was kind of drinking in those days, though. They everybody would take cases of beer on the stage with them and drink on the stage, and that was for the 60s.
Yep.
Yeah.
They were doing all that.
Yep.
But anyway, we came up, and Levon, ended up being one of the greatest drummers ever, because he had that musical ability. Levon would have been the best guitar player I ever had too, or the best bass player, because he just had that music in him,
And the mandolin, let's face
Well,
it.
he just picked that up for fun.
Oh.
But it was guitar work, because he'd played guitar for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
He used to play all the fairs and Miss Arkansas pageants and.
Oh, yeah.
With his sister.
With his sister. She played a tub bass, wash tub bass.
Oh, the washtub bass, yeah.
Yeah.
The gut bucket.
And they got out and sung little songs for the fairs, all kinds of fairs, and Miss Arkansas and everything.
And Ron was on the road, and I went to Arkansas, and I ended up staying with Levon's parents. Ronnie was like 4 months old, and they looked after Ronnie while I went to look after our club down there and our houses he had down there. And what else was there? The farm, the house, and what else?
She fired my
Oh,
favorite uncle.
in the club, the Rockwood.
And the club, yeah.
So I looked after all that.
She did. I just thought that's what they do. I didn't know that was 10 times too much for anybody.
For a normal person just to do that job.
I don't know how that's what I said. I'm going to stay with her because she's going to make some money.
Nice. Yeah,
He
you
didn't
need
know it for 30 years, though.
Oh.
It took him that long. He knows it now.
Oh, boy, I know it now. I just like to have some of my money back, so.
Not getting it. Not happening. He'll give it away.
Well, see, so I thought, well, I'll do the big thing. So I bought these 2 houses in Peterborough. They're about $500,000 each. I was going to live, I had that rent all figured out and all that. All of a sudden, well, I bought them, 2 or 3 years ago, and I hadn't got a check yet. Something happened, Gary.
Yeah.
It was taking all of my money to keep the rest of it up.
So back to the Hawks, like, so then there was you and Levon and your other guys, but how did you get into, Ricky and...
Well, I tell you, I figured out what you had to have to survive in a bar in Canada. And you wanted the best looking guys you could get to attract the girls, because the girls bring in triple what quadruple. If you got 10 girls, you'll get 30 guys out there hustling them.
Right, you figured that out.
I figured that out. So I was looking to put the best bar band possibly in the world, I thought at the time, together. So I went around. Richard Manuel's band from
Stratford?
Bradford.
Yeah, Stratford.
I'd loan them my car, my Cadillac, and booked them in Arkansas because I liked the band. Richard was nowhere near as good on piano as Stan Celeste.
Right.
It was just, Stan Celeste was the best.
But he could sing.
But could he ever?
The big could sing.
Richard Manuel boys could have gone over. When I had him learn some of them Ray Charles and Bobby Blue Bland songs, at the universities in Arkansas and Oklahoma and Texas, they gave him standing ovations. They'd never heard anybody yet. Now everybody can do it, but back then he was the only one. It didn't sound like he was copying Ray Charles. It just sounded like somebody singing one of Ray Charles' songs. And I'm telling you, he was. I thought he'd be the one that, when the band left, they could have gone to Detroit because Levon and I both knew Barry Gordy Jr. And had Motown, and Richard Manuel could have got all them great writers they have down there. Shit, and he'd have been a star. But Richard, you had to understand, he was he was an alcoholic by the time he was 12 years old.
Oh.
And was drinking like a bottle a day then. But you couldn't drink in my band, so if he wanted the job bad enough, he quit and straightened up and didn't mess up at all.
Nice.
Till they discovered pot. I come in there one day and this band's playing Ray Charles on 16 RPM or whatever it is. They were, I say, and I thought something happened to the record player. But then they played another song and it did the same thing. And I went in there and I could see them biting their lips, trying not to grin. They were just biting down on their lips. I said, what the hell? And I could smell that shit.
Yeah.
I said, boys, you've been smoking that gorilla shit. And
Gorilla shit.
And I'm telling you, well, see, the thing was, if we'd have gotten caught with one toke of marijuana merely, we'd have been deported if we didn't go to jail first. Yep. That was under the narcotic law at that time. Yep. Heroin, if you got heroin, same law.
Same law, I know.
Same law. And so you get busted with marijuana, it's like having heroin on you, and that's a bad beef. But anyway, it was scary, but they were in there listening to Ray Charles on 16 RPM.
So
trying to hold back grinning, they were looking at one another grinning,
So Richard was the first guy, well, after Levon, he came up with you, but Richard was second after Levon.
Oh, well, yeah, I needed Jimmy Ray Paulman wanted to go back to his wife. She either had to come with him, which we couldn't afford to have a woman, camp follower, and so she talked him into leaving the band, and they divorced about 6 months later.
So much for that.
Yeah, but anyway, he taught everybody a lot. Jimmy Ray Paulman was the secret to our first success in Canada. because he was one of the best rockabilly guitar players on the planet at the time.
Oh, yeah.
He was really, really, really good. And the band was, good for what it was. And like I said, the hockey players, the football players, they were all young, my age, And they all started coming in. And when they come in, everybody come in to see them.
So then it was it Ricky Danko that would have been next?
Ricky Danko.
He had a band, right?
He had a band, and he, I didn't know this. I found out this, a year or two later. Ricky Danko, Pop Ivy he was the one that owned the club and everything. Pop Ivy, he was notorious. He'd book bands way back to the big band era,
Oh, yeah.
Summer Gardens.
He was an old promoter. Was I telling you now? I forgot already.
Pop Ivy.
Oh, Pop Ivy. And he wore a white suit.
Whoa.
All day and night. I mean, that's all he ever had on. They knew him as Pop Ivy.
I remember.
Now, the Ivies evidently were big-time people in that area. They had flowers or something,
Flowers.
big time. But he broke away from them for some reason, and he became the black sheep because he had a club. But he promoted all them big name acts way back there.
Yeah.
Big band stuff. And he didn't understand rock and roll too much either. He didn't know. Harold Cutlass talked him into trying this. And, of course, we filled her up.
Yeah.
And
sure
that's
did.
when he kept trying this.
So Ricky Danko, you saw at Summer
Yeah, well, he'd
Gardens?
come into the club to be my opening act because he wanted me to see him. He knew I was looking for a player. He came in twice. Pop Ivy told me later it played for nothing,
Oh, yeah.
just so I'd see him. And I did see him, and I did like him. Good-looking kid singing all that stuff. Played that his own guitar. I knew that he had some talent.
He was on guitar at that point. Not
Yeah,
bass.
he was lead guitar player in his band.
Yeah.
In his band.
And about to get married.
Oh yes, that was a big thing.
He says with chagrin.
See, to me, a big status in that area there, Simcoe and that
Simcoe.
you had to have a tobacco farm,
Yep.
and his girlfriend, her dad had two,
Oh, okay. Let's get married.
and she was the only child. That's Ricky figuring out. That's a good one there.
Ricky, and then
That was Ricky, and I saw him, and then I gave him the chance of 3 months. We booked not Port Dover, Thunder. What was it?
Grand Bend?
Huh?
Ben.
Grand Bend. We booked Grand Bend for the summer, and I gave Ricky Danko 3 months of practicing bass to make it because
Well, why don't you smoke some more and you really remember?
I remember if I smoked some more.
Good advice.
I just
Wanda.
got caught in the middle here where I can't
I
remember
know,
anything.
so stop smoking for 5 seconds.
Who was my bass player?
Which one?
I'm trying to.
Rick.
No,
Rebel Pain?
Rebel Payne. That's who I was trying to think of. Rebel was my bass player, but he had getting married and he had to leave, and he was from the States anyway. He wasn't Canadian, his wife, but he said he had to go back and take a job as at the railroad company. He had a real good job, and that's all we heard from him from all them years.
So
That's
then
all.
after Ricky, it would have been Robbie, I guess. How did that all?
No, Robbie came first. He came before anybody else. He came in as my roadie.
Oh, right.
His mother came in the club. That's when she was still married to Mr. Robertson, it was his stepdad, not his
Yeah,
real
that's
dad,
right.
but they had adopted him, and Robbie thought it was his real dad until his mother told him that it wasn't. His dad was half Hebrew, Kligerman,
Yep, Kligerman.
and he was in jail for 10 years for the biggest jewel robbery in the history of Canada.
Yeah, I know. And there was a point when Robbie was even carrying a gun or something, right?
No, we all carried
you all
guns.
were?
Oh yes.
All of them, not Robbie. Robbie was a scaredy cat. He was.
Robbie,
he wouldn't be first.
we'd
He
be
was
out there
allowed.
fucking fist fighting and fighting for our lives, and Robbie would be wiping his guitar off on the stage, putting it away.
In the washroom.
It's down here, Robbie.
Down here, we need help.
Tell them about the story where somebody had threatened you guys when you were playing the Concord, and you were so goosey, everybody started carrying guns.
If an old woman had come on the stage and reached for a purse real quick, we'd just all shot her. That's how goosey we were.
Yeah, they got threatened by this guy, and so Levon had a gun, everybody in the band had a gun, and
They made their suits larger on the side for the gun.
We did had a special suit, but
No way.
yeah,
yeah.
it made it look like because we wore blue miles,
Lou Miles in Toronto.
We got him about 10 or 15 bands that saved him. He was just renting across the street there, and
he was so cheap that he didn't give you one suit for giving him all the business.
Oh, yeah?
Mama, you're talking about the dead.
Oh, is he dead?
Yeah.
Easy. But I heard you also got some suits from Hamilton, Jerry's Man Shop.
Yeah, we got them. I've got a Quasimodo posture, see? So you got to be a good, because they make that collar come right on into your neck if they know what they're doing. But my collar was always out here because I'm hunched back, right? and them old suits there in Hamilton, $50 a suit. That was our top price for suits, $50.
Wow. Yeah.
Shit, you can't buy a fucking handkerchief for that today.
Well, our show, it's called Hamilton Originals, and it's all about Hamilton songwriters or musicians that have played there. And we all went to Jerry's Man Shop or Lou Miles or Corey's to get suits back when I was in the band.
Because they would sell them to you because you're buying 5 or 6 at a time, and they knock it off. And they didn't do their own tailoring then. Yeah. They took it to Tip Top.
Yep.
They sent it to Tip Top with a measurement. Tip Top made it. And we know the guy real good that owns Tip Top now.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn Stonehouse that owns Wildfire owns Tip Top.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's where he got. Okay, so. Okay.
And that's, we went there to play or something. I think we was playing somewhere, and he made us all suits.
No, he hired you to play at the golf course, and he bought a suit.
Quit correcting me.
I remember verbatim. He remembers.
My stories are better though. Fred Carter Jr. and Roy Buchanan are two of the best guitar players that ever played the instrument. I don't care how many Eric Claptons and stuff. Eric Clapton them couldn't do what these boys could do. Yep. And Eric was one of the best. But Roy Buchanan, like I said, he couldn't play when the moon is full. And I said, what in the fuck, if we're booked somewhere and the moon is full, why in the fuck can't you play? He says, he was reincarnated from a wolf. And he gets all bristly and all messed up when the moon is full. I said, well, if you can do that, we're quitting music. We just gone into the big time. And I fed him 2 extra fucking weeks just to see if he could. It was in Grand Bend. Yep. And I was out there on the beach, and that moon come out, full moon, and Roy was sitting there watching Roy, not a fucking bristle came up on him, He said, I don't know what happened, right? It's the first time it didn't happen. I said, God dang, man. But you know what? He told that story to the press. Years later, he was telling that story. He was a little bit crazy, Dale, he played guitar with Dale Hawkins, my cousin.
Oh, yeah.
And Susie Q.
And he had long hair. He looked like a picture of Jesus, nerdy, had long hair and beard, everything. Well, at the Lecoq door, what's the manager?
Lecoq?
No, the other one.
Hank Josie.
Hank Josie. Hank Josie was a manager, and he was a good one. If you're the club owner, he's a good one. But I hired him. I would have hired him. But anyway, he was on Dale about people were making fun of Roy calling him, what are you, a boy or a girl, or all that shit. That long hair has got when they first started.
Yeah.
When they very first started. Neil Young couldn't even come in the bar. I mean, they wouldn't even let Neil Young come in. That wasn't, even if he had a haircut, they wouldn't let him come in. He looked like, I used to say, I wonder who's his tailor. Neil Young's tailor. I'd like to find that.
Yeah. He lives on Stony Lake now. They got out of the United States.
He done moved in with that sweet thing. They're married now.
Wow.
That, hard-hearted Hannah.
Hannah.
Daryl Hannah.
Daryl Hannah. And
well, he used to go at JFK, Jr.
In a rustic cabin.
Wow.
Yeah, they live.
Mighty sold it to them.
Wow.
I went to see that
they're
band.
all friends there.
They had a black cat. I can't even remember his name. That was in charge of the band that Neil played in when they were playing, just starting. But it was a black singer that was a star. Neil just played guitar in it. But I'd heard about him. Somebody said about he wrote songs and did this, that, and the other. And I went to hear him sing. I said, he ain't never gonna fucking get booked. I said the same thing when I saw the Rolling Stones out of tune, couldn't play. They were all fucked up, man. I said, this band won't be here next year. That was about 60 years ago, wasn't it? Or something like that. But I said the same thing about Neil Young, and boy, I'm telling you what, he had more hits than Hank Aaron. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah. Well, then he had Buffalo Springfield.
That was just one of them, yeah. But I think they hired him for Buffalo Springfield. He had several different groups that he sung in, and I thought he was making a mistake, but he was just going in like Bob Dylan. I said, what the fuck's Bob Dylan writing about now? What he wrote about starting again. I mean, you know, he started it.
Yep.
Bob Dylan, boy, he's a character. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I guess the band ended up going with him after a while.
Yeah.
Which didn't work out so good in the beginning because they kept
Well,
getting
Levon
booed.
quit because they never played a spot. They didn't get booed all night long.
That was amazing.
And Levon had never been booed in his life.
Well, because they were used to what they were used to.
Yeah.
They wanted-
Strictly folk.
Yeah.
They wanted whatever it was, and they came to boo, and they didn't stop. But that band was so good. By the time they got to Germany or wherever it was, all of a sudden the Germans stopped booing and started listening and started applauding, and then it turned it around. Turned the whole thing
Turned
around.
the corner.
Yeah.
But Levi had quit before then, though.
Yeah.
He couldn't stand to be booed, so he walked off the stage, left drums, everything,
Yeah.
and called me, and I sent him money 3 times.
I know you did.
To come up and start practicing and getting playing, and of course I didn't know, but he was shooting it. He was on heroin by then.
All right, by then, yeah.
So he was just taking the money.
Yeah.
But he and another friend of mine came by the club. I gave him my $1,500 check that you didn't know about. I gave him
I
$1,500.
remember several checks that I'd take. What's this?
Well, that's for pussy though. I don't count.
There was a lot of Jane Doe's.
Jane Doe.
Jane Doe.
But anyway, that's how everything started. And what was I telling? I forgot what it was now.
I don't remember.
Oh, you're
I
high
was
too.
talking.
Well, you were talking about Roy Buchanan. And
Oh yeah, Roy.
Didn't we go to see Roy Buchanan with Robbie Robertson on
I made
Jarvis
Robbie go.
I know, but it was
Robbie
so,
wasn't going to go after him showing him everything.
I know.
Robbie acted like Roy showed him 50 things that Robbie had never heard of or did in his life before. Roy was different. I mean, he was a strange. Well, I was telling you this story. Dale Hawkins, about him having long hair, and people were making fun of him, this, that, and the other. And that night he went back after Dale said, "You're going to have to do this, that, cut your hair and do it." He went back, shaved his head, shaved his eyebrows, and put an ice pick through his hand. And that hand was up to there.
Who did that?
Roy Buchanan.
Roy did. Oh.
Put an ice pick?
That's ice pick. And that's how crazy he was. I mean,
Well, I remember him peeing at the El McCurlie
I was there with
in
you.
the sink.
I was there with you.
he walked around and peed in the sink.
He said to Wanda, he says, I can't go. I can't use a public washroom. I have to do it right here, And you said, well, thanks a lot, Roy, because you pissed right in front of us.
You did, eh?
Yeah.
In the sink.
Well, he was a little different.
And
like
Wanda
I said.
says, thanks a lot, Roy.
But he told the press in an interview, I was there, that he did turn into a wolf. And the reason he didn't want to scare me. He said, I didn't want to scare the old hawk. And he didn't turn into one. I said, we just hit the big time. We're getting out of these bars. If you get some bristles on you, we're getting out of these bars.
Well, and that brings us to the last guy, Garth. Like, there's a definitely different person.
When I brought Garth in, that year changed everybody. They moved a notch ahead.
But I'd love to hear the story of you talking to his parents to get them to let him go on the road.
Oh no, he had to lie and say I hired him just as a teacher.
He was the teacher for the band.
Which actually it was too.
Yeah.
I just hired him for a year because the band didn't know how to read music or do all that stuff. And I said one day they're going to have to know it, because if they get up there in the big time, they're going to have to know all these things.
Yeah.
And so Garth came in, and for 1 year, I hired him. I paid him, what was it? I think $25 a week extra. We did 2 hours every night, 5 nights a week. He taught them everything, the theory, all that shit about music,
Yeah, theory.
He rehearsed 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That's exactly
5
right.
days a week.
Most of
Yeah,
my life,
after the show.
Yep.
After the
Ow.
show.
And that kept...
Every day.
And boy, that keeps young guys out of trouble, too. Because they got that pussy waiting on them, boys, and it's hard to turn them down. Except I had the willpower myself.
Now your nose is growing.
My nose will jump plumb off on that one.
Oh, yeah. But Garth, he's different. I hear he's down in Woodstock making accordions now.
Well, I never did understand Garth.
Yeah. He's
I paid him on Friday. And about 2 hours after I paid everybody, Garth come up and said, "Oh, can I borrow $10 for a couple of days?" I said, "Garth, what the fuck? You don't spend any money on it, and I just paid you." He said, "Yeah, but I've only got 50s, and you know how fast it goes once you break one." Can you fucking believe it? He told me that. I said, "Well, I knew then Garth was a little tight. He'd make Ebenezer Scrooge look like a money waster."
Oh, Garth from London, Ontario.
Yep.
Yeah, boy, I tell you what, boys, he's one of them Bach, Beethoven, Chopin type of shit.
The guys that Ronnie gave their start to, like Jim Carrey and Subway Elvis, for Christ's sake, some of these guys used to come in the club. Holy shit.
I thought Subway was really going to hit it big too. The way he had the nerve to, he was acting like he was Elvis. I think he thought he was Elvis there for a little while.
Yeah.
But anyway, he could do all that shit good. And then the next thing I know, he's robbed a bank.
Yep.
I said, holy.
Oh, I remember that guy. He was snooping in our medicine cabinet.
He goes into we had all my friends would go in the medicine cabinet and start seeing what we had in there. And see, back then you could get them painkillers that was, you know, you could amputate your fucking foot with a rusty blade, you know, after you took one of them pills.
Oh, man.
I got to ask you, too, about, just because they're so famous, John and Yoko, when they stayed in Mississauga with them?
Yeah. That was Richie York that helped me do that, boys. Richie York, I don't know if you know who he was, but he was a head writer for Rolling Stone magazine.
Right.
And then he came to Canada doing stuff, and he did a story on me. I got 3 pages in the Rolling Stone.
Whoa.
Nobody in the world had ever heard of me except on Yonge Street. One day, or even actually the day before, some of them knew it was coming out with that story about me, and every major label in the United States of America offered me a record deal.
Whoa.
Just on the strength of that one write-up. It was a good one, but everybody.
Well, he heard Down in the Alley. He really liked Down in the Alley, I heard.
That was John. You mean talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. He was signing them lithographs. And Richie put it on purpose, I think. Richie really was helping us.
Yep.
That's what he was doing.
Yep.
I mean, to get John Lennon to stay at my house, move my stock up.
No kidding.
You know, just him staying there, man.
So the hell with the $16,000 phone bill.
I never heard her call the Queen, but I heard her talk to everybody else. Margaret and all that, Peter Sellers. She talks to everybody. The Prime Minister of Japan. Her family was a big, rich banking family from Japan.
And $16,000 in the 60s was a pile of money.
No.
Well, they
Jesus
I don't know how many, 6 or 8, 10, 12 lines across the. You couldn't get a phone in Toronto for 3 months, no matter who you were.
Wow.
They had made a deal on Saturday, Sunday. They took them lines right across the fields up into the house.
We had like 12 lines of phone on a Sunday with the supervisor of the Bell telephone came and was like organizing it all.
Well, I tell you what I told John and Yoko. I said, boys, I really thank you all for coming because I think I've got all my friends back now. Everybody wants to come see me.
Well, you were on every newscast at the time.
Yes.
I mean, you know.
Well, it was
Well,
John
you couldn't got any more press than that for me. I mean, it moved my stock up as far as it ever been. And then what it was Richie York after that. We went around the world promoting the Peace Festival. And I was promoting my record with Atlantic.
Yeah.
And boys, everywhere we landed, and he starts that shit from Rolling Stone, the biggest people in that city, like Hong Kong, the richest people in Hong Kong was taking us out and showing us because we thought we were somebody.
Wow.
You know, and we was eating the good shit and those and drinking the good shit. And of course, Richie's writing all them fucking stories and doing all this shit. And we went everywhere. We were in Bangkok. I came out of the hotel one morning just to see what the fuck it looked like, and we'd come in at night. And I walked up the street a little bit, and I heard somebody, the Hawk. I said, what in the fuck? Miss Canada was over there doing a pageant. That was one of the guys that worked for the Miss Canada pageant. Wow. Evidently, Miss Canada goes around to different countries, sings or dances or whatever they do.
Wow.
And then I got to go out there and find out where that tie stick came from. That was interesting.
Yeah, no kidding.
That was interesting. The tie stick, boy, governments can change and presidents can change and kings can change, but that never changes. It stayed that, and that family, all them families that worked there, like they were making more money than they were if they was working in town. And tie stick, boys, what it is when that stick is wet, on that stick, they sprinkle opium dust on it, and and that gives it that other kick.
That's why it was two-step.
Well, you know, I was saying our show's about Hamilton, and I know over the years you hired a number of Hamilton musicians in your band.
Well, I want to tell you something, boys. Hamilton always had some real good musicians. I don't know why, but it was different. It wasn't like a rockabilly. They had to learn that later. I was the only one playing rockabilly at one time. But then they got, you know, after 10 years, they got to playing it better than I could. They were different. I can't name all, I can't remember.
Well, you had like Jack de Kaiser.
Oh, yeah, Jackie was a great little guitar player. John Lewis.
John Lewis?
Oh, he was good. And then the Biscuit Boy was from Hamilton. The world does not know how good this fucking kid is. He's closer to the real thing than anybody I've ever heard. So he had the talent, but I don't know what, he was a little crazy. I'm telling you, he'd do things that you just can't do, you know, but boy.
What about Bill Dillon?
Billy Dillon, you know, he was another one, him and Steve Hogg.
Yeah, Steve Hogg. Well, Bill played in my band, so I know him.
But I want to tell you what, they were two good musicians, boys.
Yeah.
They were extra good.
Huh.
See, Mike has been playing with the group that he's been for 50 years.
Isn't that something?
I
think I'm a younger version of you.
Well, you're not near as fucking good looking, I can tell you that.
Well, my two daughters said we look the same, so I took that as a compliment.
Well, you should.
I should. God damn.
There's another Hawkism. You should. You should. But, you know, and then Rita Shirelli.
Rita Shirelli.
Oh, my
I
God.
just want to intervene.
Just a couple more questions, Ronnie. I saw a thing where you played a concert in Hamilton Place in the 80s. Remember that at all?
I'll tell you what, I've played Hamilton a lot of times.
But Hamilton Place, I do remember, because I couldn't get the parking.
You couldn't get parking?
No, I had to go across the street and all that stuff. So that's my memory of that show.
Damn. Hamilton was
Well,
not
you remember
good.
more than I can. I can't remember parking.
You weren't there.
Oh.
You were already in. I got you in.
You know, boys, I played half a year, 7 days a week. Because I didn't know how long this was going to last. I was tickled to death to have a job and showing off. You know, it was showing off for me, playing.
Yeah.
And you never know where, but boy, we hit it just right. Timing couldn't have been any better for Canada. It was just changing. A lot of the people couldn't stand it, but the young people, like the hockey players, the football players, that was their kind of music at that time. And that really helped us too.
When I walked in as a kid and finally was old enough to go into the clubs and saw the audience that this guy had, holy shit.
I'm telling you, boys, they were there for a few years. It was big time.
You had everybody.
Big time there for a while. Yeah. But, you know, after a while, they got better, and the Canadian bands got better and better and better, and some of them become big. If I'd have come across the border right now with my little band, we couldn't have got a job. Too many people too good now.
But you were like blazing the trail, like you were.
Well, I was
blazing trail.
Absolutely.
I was.
You made it possible for Canadians to be successful and make a living in Canada.
That's why he's a legend.
And that's why we owe it to Dallas Harms. Is the only cat that saved us.
What else do you need?
That was it, Wanda. You just said it all. That's
well, I tell you what, between Wanda and Gary, they can tell you my whole fucking life. I can't remember nothing.
And you know what? I have to say that if it wasn't for Ron and Wanda, I would have never played, never sung, never had. I would have never even thought of it.
No, well, you shouldn't have thought of it now either.
Yeah.
There you go, Wanda.
Hawkism,
Ronnie can dish it out. You just got to take it, right?
You got to be able to take it. Absolutely.
Hey? That's what Gary keeps telling.
He's tough. He's got tough skin.
Yeah, Gary's tough.
He can do it.
You can
You have
too.
to be. I do too.
Oh, Wanda,
Of all
Jesus
the bullshit
Christ.
that I had to go through.
Oh, I'll bet.
Lots. The guy wants to do the documentary more about Ron and my relationship. Boy, he always says that he has to die before I tell the
Well, I don't want to do it. I want to take it alive. I don't want to hear what that.
I think Wanda would be the only non-American to win the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Actually, I do have a medal Ronnie gave me.
Well, I want to tell you something, boys. When
Woman of the year.
when she has this much to drink over her limit,
Look out.
look out.
I'm getting there too. I'm working on it. Then I'll
Boy.
be taking over the interview.
She can name off 3,000 of my girlfriends, and I can't even remember one. It's gotten so interesting because I've forgotten about most of those things.
My era for you was the Grange. And, you know, I think you might want to mention the Hones because I thought they were great club owners. Tommy Hone,
Well, the club, that was the number one club in town in Hamilton.
no question about it.
And we didn't get to play it till I'd been in Canada a while. We'd made a name by then.
Well, I don't think I missed a performance. You were there for I don't know how many years. And every time you were either there or you were at Port Dover or you were at Grand Bend or you were at the Le Cog d'Or, I always found a way of getting in. That's how we started a relationship because I was the biggest fan. I couldn't believe how good these guys were.
Well, I want to tell you, I could tell Gary was there because he was always this much taller than anybody else in that crowd.
Right, so you can see him.
He was taller, but he didn't grow after that. He got
And I
that.
had hair. As Ron says, son, you had more hair than the Beatles the first time I met you.
He did too. But boys, I tell you what he's had. The best looking girls. I'm telling you what, I couldn't believe it.
Nice.
Well, as your dad said, it just ain't right.
This ain't right. Something ain't right there.
Well, I got to thank you so much for this interview, Ronnie.
Oh, it's fine. I'm not too good at interviews anymore, but because I can't remember anything.
Well, you did
Shit.
good today.
I have to roll up my sleeves and remember which way to walk.
All right, well, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
See that she'll be back home in 40 days. 40 days. Gonna send me on the worldwide hoodoo. That'll be the very thing that'll suit you. Gonna see that she'll be back home in 40 days. Gonna see that she'll be back home in 40 days.
Gary Lucas.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining
Thanks,
us.
guys.
December 14th. See you then.